Happy Monday. It is May 5th, May 6th, 2019. I come to you sharing my story, my journey of just being to the point. I'm 51 now. I was born in 1968, February 5th, 1968 in Lakeview Terrace, California. And I was always excited about my birth because I was told there were 5 baby girls born the day I was born, all with the name of Kimberly. And that was one of my things on my bucket list, is to meet one of 5 or all of these women born on February 5th, 1968 in Lakeview Terrace. I've yet to meet them, but that's one of my journeys. I am inspiration. This is from wethebusiness.com. The glasses are motivation. wethebusiness.com, and I'm wearing this shirt. I am alive. I'm inspired. This was from the Sanctuary Choir at the City of Refuge, where my pastor at that time was none other than Noel Jones. And everything I'm wearing is part of my journey to get me to the success today. I am a survivor. I actually currently have been off of work since November of 2018, and I've never been in a situation where I had no income at all, and this has been that journey for me. What happened was I was top Uber driver, and I began to drive for Lyft also last year, and I got very sick and I was having some issues, and I went to the doctor. In all actuality, I've been having problems with my breast since 2008 or so, and it went from one breast to the term was given, it's a lump in your other breast. I took it as full-blown cancer. When you say it's in one breast, it's healed from that one, and then now it's over here, and I've been dealing with it since 2008. I had to literally take a seat and reevaluate myself. I talked with my husband, and I let him know that it was time for me to sit down, because I don't want it to get larger and then they have to remove it. And what my doctor at Cedars-Sinai told me, he was basically asking me what is compelling me to want to have the surgery, because they're not really trying to have surgeries because they have staph infections and all kind of things that you can get more. And when they remove a lump in your breast, it will leave like an indentation. It creates more problems, so it's just better for them to monitor it over the last 5 months. So I have still been healing in my marriage. Me and my husband, we were high school sweethearts. I met him at the age of 16, and I'm now telling my story. He adopted my son, and it's been a journey. I had 3 other children with him, and he knew my son's father. However, it was just best that we moved on and parted ways. And when my son turned 18, I let him actually meet his father. So I'm just saying, what as a person at 14 and having to make life decisions on how to raise a son, how to still having to go to, I was in high school at that time, and going to work. My first job was a cashier at Kmart. So I was taught about paying taxes and working, and there's plenty of fish in the sea. So I want to inspire someone to let go of your past so that you can move forward into your future, into your purpose. In spite of what's going on around the world, there's still love. There's still babies being made. Until God says it's said and done, realize I am alive. I am, what does it say? Inspiration. And then you have these glasses, motivation. Once again, check out wethebusiness.com. It's been a very difficult time, because being a mom made me be a real full-on go-getter. I mean, from the time I had my son, I loved being a mom, But my problem as a teen mom is I always worried about what others thought of me, and it just went on throughout my life. And when I got married at 18, I got involved in the church, and I had never really been in church before. Never had a desire, because if you played church with me, I didn't. That's one thing I didn't want to do, was play church. I was introduced to church through so many of my loving relatives that I actually I still love them to this day. My mom's sister Pamela, she was a substitute teacher. I got a lot of love from her. My best friend, Annette Harper, I grew up with her. She had four brothers, five brothers. Going and spending the night with her and seeing her mom and being a hustler. Her and my mom were nurses, and they just were inspiration. I always wanted to be a family. Seeing my grandparents together made me to want to have a relationship. So I had high expectations for myself and others. So basically, I never hid the fact that I had a son, but it was the fact that I was in circles that were older than me, that I was trying to live. I was totally out of my lane. As far as working and going to school, I was supposed to do all that. But when I got into church, I was around families who lived a proper life, and they didn't believe in fornication. And if you don't know what that means, that's we really believe in that in the church, not sleeping with someone other than your husband, or adultery, putting something before God. So I was 10 years in this church. At 18, I had got very ill within a 10-year period when I was there, because I became a overachiever. I mean, I was a minister. I was singing in a choir. I was directing in a choir. If they said we have something in Palm Springs, we were going to Palm Springs. If we had something in LA, we went to LA. My pastor now, oh, I'm so elated that I am in his presence. He was the person that helped sign for your minister's license, and he is now my pastor. So when I was about 20, I became a minister, and he signed my license. I don't even like talking about that. I'm a very private person. I don't like talking about my accomplishments very much. So for me to do this is a huge thing. And so me and my husband, our journey was awesome. I loved every minute of being married. I didn't notice we started having issues until my son, my oldest son, became a sixth grader, and he was put in Steven Spielberg's movie, which was huge. All the football players in the Valley pretty much was in that movie, but my son was singled out to be a principal, and he made $500 a week as a sixth grader, and his school at the time was in Chatsworth. He had to go get signed out of school. He had school while he was there for 6 months. So it was a blessing being in that environment. We were traveling all over. The only part of the movie he didn't participate in is when they went on to Pasadena, and he didn't film in that part. His character was Bookman. He had parents. He played on the Cowboys. That was the winning team. And after that, I taught my son how to pay 10% of his monies to pay tithes in the church. And I just felt it was just, I was just being blessed on so many levels financially. I had a job, I had a husband, I had all four of my kids at that time. However, I lost my grandparents, and that's how I ended up living in their home. My mother and all of her siblings, they signed off so I can get that house, and I became executor of the estate, so forth and so on. Not because I was a favorite. I had cousins, sisters, brothers, but I was the only one at that time that had 4 children, and that's why they allowed me to get that house. And so upon us getting that house, we instantly, even before then, we've always let people stay with us. People always dumped off. Well, first of all, it was my brother and his wife. They lived with us first. And then the next set of family that came in was my sister-in-law's children, her 2 girls. And then I had all 4 of my kids. And it just went on. Then I had my husband's cousin and her son, and then my mom moved in with us, and then it just was a rotating situation where we all, and it was overwhelming because I had to work. I was very active in the community. I put my kids in Vaughn Street. It became the first charter school in the entire pretty much state of California. I was very active there. Upon that, I was traveling to Santa Barbara with my son's teacher and a group of other parents where we were trying to find out about college, and that's where I got. I was determined. I said, "Oh, I want my son, my kids to go to college," and I started being active. And so that was the down when everything started spiraling down for me at church, because I was actually taking what I was learning and learning to work in the community. And President Clinton actually blessed that school. I didn't get a chance to meet him, but it was just the path that I was on. My kids were just excelling in school. My two younger kids, they went to one of my friends I went to high school with, Janice Lipscomb. Her mom and dad had a school attached to where I actually, my aunt went. It was a Methodist church in San Fernando, and it was in the back, the Learning Academy, and they were known for teaching people the computers. And my kids, they excelled when they went there, and that was their foundation, which helped them to learn about studying. They can be gone all day from 5 o'clock in the morning all the way till 9 o'clock at night, and they still were able to study and get their work done. I raised the athletes, and it was great being a parent. The downside of all of that, I ended up having a nervous breakdown because I went back to school to get my high school diploma. And during that time, I was working for a temp agency called Remedy Intelligence Staffing in Sino. And then I blossomed there. I got a job while my son was in that movie. And I was, working in human resources as a receptionist. And then I got spotted out by their safety police, and they were asking about me, and then I promoted and went to the Olive View. I was working at Olive View at the time, and I became a dispatcher, and that's what made me go back for my high school diploma. And then I went to Rio Hondo College. That was when the verdicts were going on with OJ, and that was they read the verdicts right when we were graduating, so it was a lot of things going on. Then I was introduced to an old friend that I went to school with, and then she introduced me to a guy. That was the first time. I was 10 years in my marriage at that time, and that was the first time I was introduced to being infidelity on my husband, and it created a situation which I would never recover from. So you cover up one thing with another. I had a lot going on, so that I was out of the church. I had a full-on nervous breakdown, and my kids, thank God, they were never injured in the process. But upon having a breakdown, it takes weeks, maybe even months before someone spots it, because you're getting dressed, you're doing everything, but you're acting quirky, and unless someone that really knows you, they don't know what's happening. And ultimately, I had a break at some point, and I was hospitalized for 10 days, and that was the first time I was away from my kids. And I did everything humanly possible to recover from that. Ultimately, we lost our house in Pacoima, which was the house I grew up in. And we moved first to a house in Winnetka. My son was entering high school, and I was like, I didn't understand the value of owning a home, and our rent was probably going to be $1,200, and that's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket. And we went and moved there so my son can go to high school. Well, my daughter had, prior to us moving, gotten jumped some kind of way. She said she fell, but I went to pick her up from school, and she had blood all over her shirt, and she was only in the first grade. I was so upset. The school was shut down. There was no office. I had an awesome job. That's after I left and recovered, and that's one of my first jobs back. I was working in Studio City as a receptionist at a CPA firm. And I blossomed there. It was 3 stories, and this was where the CPAs did taxes for the upper echelon in like sports, business, whatever. It was Brownlee for Slacken and Burns. I did very well there. But I was faxing documents downtown LA to the school board for my daughter, trying to, I was very upset. I was trying to make my two kids, who are literally 11 months apart, be in the same class at that point. I felt like there was no safety. It just went beyond. And so when we moved to Winnetka, I had all this going on and recovering from a breakdown, and end up going to a new school. I was still trying to be active in the school. However, when I was being active in the school, I was walking up to the school. I took a stick with me because of dogs. But my baby son, he was in kindergarten. And just the fear of your kids being injured at school with no staff or no one helping you, an unresolved issue at a whole nother school, it was just a problem for me. And my attitude was crazy. And I took my son. He was eating breakfast at school, and in the mornings I would walk him. But this particular day, my son, I turned to walk away, and then he was the first in line, and it was almost 15 kids in front. He was to the back. And, years later, I realized, my son is so loving. He probably let those kids cut in front of him and just go ahead. Not even nothing. Kids they're not trying to create such situations. But I end up getting myself in trouble because I returned back to the school. I threatened the girl. I said, okay, you're going to pay. And I came back up to the school, and obviously they were made aware. She told the principal. When I went back, the principal confronted me and asked me what did I wanted to do with the stick, and it became as the threat to her. And I went on the campus to pick up all three of my kids were at the same elementary school. They were new there, and the school police were called on me, and I went to jail in front of my kids. And that would have been the second situation I had with the police. I was out of control. And pretty much the time before that, I got an issue where they owed me money, and we were in the process of losing our house. I was getting my benefits for the first time for unemployment. And they, no one ever sat me down and say, hey, it's going to take weeks. And that's why they teach you about having backup money, so that when you're waiting for those monies to come in, you're not losing it. You have a savings, you pull from that. Well, you live and you learn. And I went there and I threw a briefcase through the window at the unemployment office. And I actually was able to drive back home. And they had officers that came to my house. They didn't arrest me because when I left there, I had to go get my son from school. And that's actually what saved me. They let me, I had to pay restitution for that window. And I didn't have the money, so I did 3 days in jail, I guess, for that. It was the first time I was ever in jail. I believe I was between 29 and 30 years old. And it was just a downhill spiral, going to jail and then still having to raise your family, still having to work. Just lost our house. I was pretending that, we sold that house. We didn't sell it. We lost it. And so when you just keep piling on lies upon lies, your life is still going. And then you get a second arrest at your kid's school, and you still want to keep going. I was still, even though I was arrested, I was able to get my kids in the school of my choice at that time. I had to go through all that for me to have them placed into the school that they end up all graduating from, where they all did good together, Josh, Brichet, and DJ, Dale Jr. And the place that we was living in was a nice house, but it had mosquitoes or something in the house, and the water in the bathroom came up through the toilet and just shot up, and it ruined the whole bathroom. So we end up moving from that place. We went to court, and it was starting over. And then here we go, my first time living in apartments with my kids. And we moved to the Wilburs, which was in Northridge. And that adjustment was just like a death sentence. So moving there, was where my downfall was, because I wasn't active with my kids anymore. I started picking up weight. I was on medication, psychiatry medication at that time to help me. And that medication I was taking, I took everything they told me because I was trying to be in my kids' life. It made me never want to leave and go anywhere. And before you knew it, I blew up to, I think my max weight was 340 something. And my doctor, I had the same doctor, and he, which was an internist, and he is the one that played a vital role in which would help me to get that weight off, however, years later, because he watched me. He was like, man, what are you doing? Eating your food and Shaq's food? He called my second oldest son Shaq because he said he was big. And that is one of my biggest kids, Joshua. So thank you, Dr. Ruth. And the journey to that point, as you can see, it was just everything was out of control. Even with me going to the psychiatrist and dealing with my breakdown and just taking everything, the cocktails of medication that they gave me. When I first had the breakdown, my husband literally had to talk for me and do everything for me, take me to the doctor and sit there. Because remember, I had children. I didn't want my kids taken. And so he had the pressure of taking his wife to the doctor, literally sitting in the psychiatry appointments with me. I believe that went on for 2 years. And then I found another doctor, and she was in Northridge, and I thought she was the best thing. She would sit there. She was so pretty, a Chinese woman named Dr. Garma, crossing her legs and just always talking. She was just feeding me the pills, and she wasn't paying attention to the weight. I was just in a better place. This is the second time when I started taking kids on again. My sister was going through her second divorce, and I always helped my sister. I kept her kids for her, and my son was going off to college. It was very emotional time because I'm very close to my kids. That's Chris. He signed his own letter of intent, not for football, for track, and went to Arizona State. He could have actually went the last year that Reggie Bush was at USC, but he didn't want to go there. I guess he wanted to get away and try a new experience, so he went to Arizona State. That was very emotional. My son leaving me for the first time. Little before that, he met his birth father and their family. It was just a horrible time for me. I was trying to make things right, because I didn't know what my medical situation was going to be. And just all the things I was dealing with came to a screeching halt because I started getting medical crisis in my life because I became morbidly obese, and I was having problems with my kidney. I had kidney crystals. They weren't full kidney stones, and I had to go in the hospital for a while and get those crystals. I was urinating. I couldn't even pick my kids up from school. I was so huge. I had the cutest car at that time. I had a Ford Probe. That was one of my favorite cars. That was the second Probe I had, and I got rid of it to keep my sister's kids, because we were in an auto accident some years prior, and my niece Andrea, she was not sitting back, didn't have on a seatbelt, and we had a couple run into our car. They didn't have insurance, and she was the one that got injured, her forehead. It was a very sad time. So my sister, she came back maybe a year or two later, and that's when I started. I had 8 kids altogether. I was babysitting kids during the day also. The guy that painted my car, I had a Saab, and he painted my car. That's the car that got totaled out. Just got it out the shop, and it was crashed and complete. It was horrific, especially that my niece was injured. And when my son came back from his first year in college at Arizona, he had to go to Pierce College. And let me give you a fun fact. When he went to Pierce College, he met Solange's, Beyonce's sister's future baby daddy there. He was going briefly there. My kids have always been around different celebrities and different things just from running track and playing football. So it was just an interesting time. And that was the first time that My daughter was let her go to Mexico to visit my husband's family. For the first time, I let her go, and we were leaving to go get her. She was gone for the summer, and that's when my son got the young lady pregnant. And when she got pregnant, it instantly became a problem. She started asking for documentation of my son's birth. It would be the reason to destroy my family, pretty much, to this date. To come into someone's house, you're pregnant. We're acknowledging your pregnancy, but you come and you bring your uncle, not your father, not your mom, but your uncle who has a family. I understand they were in Santa Clarita and a nice family, but they disrespected us. And it led to the events that we still deal with today. My kids were always around my husband's assistant. And that was always a problem. I asked him privately not to have that lady around, and that led to me having another emotional breakdown, because I had 8 kids that I was taking care of, never getting really out of the house. My joy was being around them when they came home at night, and just basically trying to keep the upkeep with them. All I was doing was eating myself to death, buying food from the back. It being in an apartment, that was a fun thing. My kids, they got credit for me. I would just have my food bill was $32 one time from off of chips, sodas, and just stuff like that. That's all I did. But once I got those kidney stones and I'm urinating, I can't go anywhere for a long period of time without me going to the bathroom. And so when my son had his baby shower, that young lady, my family, my husband's family, they were all there. I lost it because the assistant of my husband pulled up, blew her horn. Everybody said, "Who's that?" Opened the door, and here comes this lady asking people to come help her bring in a gift. She was not invited by me, and it would be the reason why I lost it. My sister came and got her kids. She took me to my doctor. She got the card, notified my doctor. Next thing I know, I'm in the hospital. She spoke on my behalf, and that's when they labeled me to have bipolar. My sister would be the one to call and say that I was out of control or whatever. The fact my daughter would go away and stay with my sister and her new fiance. And while my husband was at work, I don't know what was going on. Imagine waking up, I'm in this place, and I got a hold on me, 10-day hold. I can't come out. My niece, my sister's oldest daughter, comes and lets me know my daughter's with her mom, and I didn't see my husband. And these would be the events that would make me get my entire life together. I had to just basically go 5 days a week, or 4 days a week. They'd come pick me up in the bus, and I would have to go to class for 8 hours while my kids were at school. And I started walking while I was there. I started losing weight. My doctor started, I had to get a medical evaluation. It took 3 years to have that surgery because they didn't think I could stand mentally. And I did. And I got the weight off. And I was probably on 13 different medications. And after I had the surgery, I pretty much got weaned off of just the basics. I ended up having 3, down from 13 to 3. And those would be the medications I would take for mental health. And I started having tremors in my lip. At that time, I probably was on my medication almost 7 years. I started having problems with my breasts, and I believe that's what I'm dealing with now, where my breasts started lactating. I thought I was pregnant. I was actually like, what is going on? And so my doctors end up taking me off of the medication I had been on since the beginning. I believe it was risperidol, which was the medication that was causing problems with my breasts. Prozac was the one that put the weight on me, and I had another medication that was causing my lip to tremble. And I'm a great communicator. I tell my doctors what's going on, and that's why I'm a success. So they're able to make adjustments and help me. And so when I got in that program, it changed my life. So I was never really mad at my sister. I never said, "Oh, I don't have bipolar." I mean, it's just we were just trying to get better so I can be in my kids' life. My kids were never taken from me, and it was about moving forward. My kids were heavenly. Now at this time, they're all athletes, going all over the place, traveling the world without me, and just living their life. And as a mom, being a grandmother to a person that's not cooperating with you, tearing down my family, and it made a situation where another woman had to take my place, pretty much. And it's not about you sleeping with a person. It's just involving yourself and doing the things that a mother would do. Missing my son's 6th grade graduation photos, and she taking him and doing that, and being gone all day, to just being at a track meet, being the Tim. That's what I had to endure. It was just never happy for me, and that was the main thing that had me upset, and I had to grow from that place. And ultimately, when I lost that weight, I became another person. I became, what do we call, a diva or whatever. There was no church. I was so angry because of the journey I went through. And this is a story that I left out. My daughter had been molested by a family member when she was 2 years old. And the blessing was my daughter was able to tell that same day. And we went to the doctor. I confronted the person, her mother, and we moved. And it caused division in my family. And that is the reason why my family and I pretty much don't deal, because when it comes down to children, I care about their safety. My mother was molested by one of her cousins who she never told her father, because, like I said, my grandfather carried a gun and she didn't want her father to go to jail. But I was made aware of it as a young child, what would happen with my mom. And I never dreamed that it would happen to my daughter. And my husband, he came from a family where his siblings, or his sister, was molested. And for her childhood until she had her son, I guess. I don't know, but I'm glad. The only thing I'm glad is that he told me, because I never wanted my kids around his family knowing that type of behavior was going around. I'm totally against any type of child crimes. I'm totally against it. I also came up with a business, Kimberly's Child Observation Service. I went to school, small business administration. I did everything to get that business off the ground, but I didn't get any support. But I got that when I was pregnant with my last son, DJ. And I went in, dealt with that for about 5 years, and it just never really took off. But that's one of my passions as kids. And so we're now on the point where me and my husband, we end up divorcing because of once my son got married, and his wife, she didn't really he married a woman that was, she had an estranged relationship with her father and mother. I never met them. They were together maybe at least on the minimum of 5 years before I even met her. I met the mom when she was pregnant. We were having the baby shower over near the Beverly Center, and that was my first time. And she wasn't very friendly when I met her. I'm very authentic, and I'm going to tell my story. So when my son and her had a baby, it was a very hard time. She didn't take classes for childbirth. I would, I was very instrumental. I always showed her love. I always showed attention. However, when me and my husband got on hard terms, they were living in the house with us, and I was thrown for a loop. There's nowhere to park, and I come home. A car is parked in my driveway. Coming home from work, door open. So I thought somebody broke in the house. I entered the house, and her mom, Spanish young lady, and her were in the room, and it has a separate entrance. They could have went out, but they weren't. It was a bed on the door, and the mother was saying, I came in, I was like, hey, who's here? And the mother says, ignore her, she's nothing. I was like, I called her a bee. What you talking about? She's calling the police on me. So what I did was I closed the bedroom door and left them in there while she's calling the police on me. This is my house. And they said, ignore her, she's nothing. And then you hear, hey, from what I hear, you ain't on no lease. And it was like, wow. So when the police came, they end up calling my husband while he was at work. We were getting to it was a major situation. No one touched anyone, but it was pretty crazy. And he calls, and my husband says, no, I'm not on the lease. So I was put out of the house. Pretty much that was the end of my relationship. My husband's mother had passed away prior to this situation. So it was a very heated I had given up an apartment already to come back because his mother had cancer. I knew this woman ever since I was 16 years old. But I came to be supportive to my kids and my husband. My son was in college. I even called him, said, hey, I don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning. If you need to go see your grandmother, she's very sick. I'm so happy that I did those things so my kids didn't have to suffer to miss their grandmother, that they were a part of her, when she was not well. And me and my husband, unfortunately, we end up divorcing through that time. I end up dating a dancer here in LA, and he was an ex-gang member. We lived together for 2 years. I learned about that lifestyle and that I'd never want to be in it. However, his family, they were nice to me. His kids, I was around his children. When he was not there, his 2 older children, which were El Salvadorian, I believe, and black. Anna was his mom. She would bring her kids over there, and they would stay with me on the weekend. We would have a good time. I was proposed to in 2013 in front of his family, about 50 people, because his mother had left and went out with a friend. She had to go back into LA. We were way in Moreno Valley. He did not follow through with the engagement. But just the fact that he was able to say what I meant to him in front of about 50 people during the holiday, even one of his baby mothers were there. It was a very emotional time for me. That was in 2013. 2014, my divorce was final. I was doing really good on my job. I became a direct sales rep for Charter at the time, and then it moved on to Spectrum, which is one of the largest entities that competes with DirecTV now. If you're looking for free cable for under $20, I'll give a plug to SetVTV .com through my friend Nino Brown. He speaks of it all the time. Look at a few of his videos and you can see it, where to get that cable. But this has been a journey, like I said, because it's so much that goes into this. Being introduced to that lifestyle, it's a lifestyle. When you're dating a dancer, you're up. This person comes in at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, or not at all. You got to be prepared. Well, I lived with him for 2 years, so I was prepared. I was blown away when he got into an incident with a person. He got in a car club. He stopped dancing for me. I didn't tell you that. When he proposed, he started dancing, and for about 6 to 9 months, and he started trying to find different things to do to replace income, but it was difficult because that's all he knew. He loved every one of his children. So his kids, he had issues with some of the mothers that didn't let him see his kids with child support. So I just learned about all that baby mama stuff. And not only that, my son, before I left, he had already 3 children. So it's not something that I was a stranger to, but I was so busy working and trying to provide and going through my divorce. And when it was finalized, I was just celebrating life to the fullest and making sure that I didn't cheat on this man and create problems because he was very controlling. Even I had my boss she tried to help me get away from him. And I mean, I had over 150 messages on my phone call on how many ways, if I didn't get back home, what life was going to be. I end up having a cell phone that he paid for, and that's what ultimately took me back. I was gone for 3 days, and that was the first time that I was abused by any man like this. I mean, from being thrown into a car, being punched, kicked in my ribs, almost trying to tear the door off the hinges, and just, that was the violence, and driving down the 110 freeway threatening to kill me. I was never going to leave that man again. I didn't even know how I was going to get away. But violence is something, like I said, I never wanted to experience. But that was my first time being abused by this person, because I left for 3 days and he was looking for me. We switched cars, so that's why he didn't know what car I was in. I was actually had signed up for a whole nother apartment, but when I was able to listen to some of those messages where he was saying, I'll come to your job and those different things, well, it became real. So I did not want to play with this man. And ultimately, he lost his life maybe 9 months after that, in a situation with Car Club, a situation where I would lose everything that I worked for. In that 2-year period we worked, we had furniture, we had everything that we built together, and it was lost. And that one night, my family came and rallied around me, and the police got involved, and it's a situation that I never wanted to go back to. I left everything. I didn't want nothing, and moved on with my life. I was living with my son, and because me and my husband had to deal with the business of getting the vehicle that was in his name taken back, I had to, my son, he was running for USC and UCLA meet, and ultimately he lost the second day. He won the first event, and I end up moving back with my husband. He passed away May. This is the month of May. That's why I'm making this video. May the 12th, 2015 is when he passed away. And God bless him and his family. It's the first time I'm ever talking about this on an open thing like this, to get closure and moving on. He passed away. I didn't go to the funeral out of respect for my current husband. I gave the furniture back that I paid so much money for to his mom, and I gave her what I retrieved when the police were there, when I was able to get. And so I ended up going to court. I faced that situation by going to court, trying to recoup the money in small claims. However, it was thrown out, and it was just a hard time. And we're 4 years away from that situation, and it's just been very difficult remarrying a person, and it is a tough situation. You're married to someone for 26 years, and it ends on a note where you lose your mother-in-law, and it was ugly, and I dated someone else, and sometimes you just don't get over these things, and so we struggle. However, my son was able to graduate from USC in 2015. He's traveled to China. He has a clothing line called Gusto, Grind Until Success Triumphs Odds. And in the process of us getting back together, I've since attached myself to wethebusiness.com. There's been video posts of me speaking of the type of person I am. I've met Snoop Dogg through wethebusiness.com, which is Nino Brown 305. It's just a lot of positive things, and that's why I'm wearing this hat, these glasses, in support of a person that is just kind, that gives back to the homeless. Those are the things I was doing while trying to heal and move forward with what comes with a situation when you remarry a person in such a sad situation. I'm appreciative of everything that my husband has done. But in moving forward, it's gotten legal, and the police have been involved. My son has a situation where that he's dealing with in court now, and I just want to do what I can to help someone to diffuse any situations you may have with your kid's father. Allow your kids to see their father, their mother, and not work it out in court, because when you go to court, it's out of your hands. And when it gets violent, and when they step in and there's restraining orders put on people and all those, it gets real ugly. There's dividing lines. And I have never put my kid's father on child support, and I made it. You don't have to set people up. You don't have to do that. That's not my belief. I'm against baby mothers. And that's what made me attach myself to WeTheBusiness.com, because this person, I watched him over the many years, the last several years, love his children, provide for his children, even bring his mothers in videos and speak highly of them. And I support anyone that is trying to help with the crime wave. We just lost Nipsey Hussle, and now his children are without a father. It wasn't due to anything pertaining to his baby mother, but I'm just saying it's what's happening in our community. And people, when you lose someone, you cannot replace someone. There's no give back. All you can do is memory. So I believe in giving a person their flowers before anything occurs. I know I talked about a lot of subjects. I've been all over the place, but this is me starting my new life. Whether I do a video next month, next week, next hour, this is a part of my journey to help someone. I do daily devotions. I skipped daily devotion today in order to talk about this. If you have thoughts of suicide, you need to talk to someone. You need to go get mental health help. It's a lot of things you can do to help yourself. I mean, my breakdown occurred in 1997, and I've been able to live a productive life. I don't discuss my medical situation, unfortunately, with people, because people take something that is private and they can use it against you, and you can be in serious trouble. You have to be careful about who you share your personal information with, even posting online your information. People can befriend your children. Kids are getting kidnapped. Lately, there's been a lot of alerts with missing children. And so, like I said, my main concern is children. And I'm supporting anyone who is about positivity in our community at this point. If you want to give back, patron, you can go on Nino Brown 305's Facebook page. He has an Instagram page. He has a Twitter. You have to do the research and look up some of the things that he's doing in your area. If you want to bring him to your town to be a speaker, I'm very private. I took him upon meeting meeting him, and he took me to meet Snoop. We stopped at Nipsey Hussle's store off of Slauson, and he bought so much stuff. And in the video where I'm recording and just sitting and watching them, he had on the Crenshaw hat and shirt, and he was full support, and he lives in Miami. So God bless you all, and I hope that this has shed some light on some of the things that we deal with in our community. I'm just one of millions, maybe billions of people who have had young children, but my kids went on to go to college and live productive lives. I was told and going to counseling that you have to let your kids live their life. I actually have a daughter that's in the LGBT community. She's very active. So hip hop, I know a lot of this because of my kids. I'm in my lane. I'm doing me. I love music. I grew up with all type of Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, Cyndi Lauper, Boy George, Prince, Michael Jackson, Zapp. I mean, all these different groups. The Sugar Hill Gang was the first rap group I heard. When I was younger, I tried to break dance. I was break dancing on boys. That's how boys entered my life, because of the simple fact I was going up. My aunts worked at a school, and they would call me up there, and I would break dance. That's how I met my son's father. He went to the school where I was break dancing for. I wasn't interested in boys, and that's how he got close to me, because of him knowing my aunt. But long story short, you have to be a part of your kid's life. And we are led away of our own lust. You have to stop blaming people. And I'm going to share this with you. Toxic places and toxic people you need to avoid. A person that shows you who you are the first time, you have to believe them. You have to remove yourself from people that are haters. I've heard it in the church over the last 4 years, even the pastors talking about haters. If they're not celebrating you, then leave, because life is too short. Don't spend your time trying to impress people. That's what I did for the first 30 years of my life, is trying to impress people that don't mean you no good. And when someone celebrates you, I feel that that's the person that you should be around. You need to be around people that want to see you win and not see you struggle. And so happy Mother's Day, Mom. I love you. I thank you for birthing me. Thank God for all the ladies that have been an integral part of my life over the last 5 years. The new church that I go to, I embrace the women's ministry that they have there. I go to Peace Apostolic Church in Carson, California. My pastor is Elder Swansea, and like I said, he was the person when I was young, in my 20s, when I became a minister, a licensed minister. He signed off on my minister license. I didn't know him personally, but when I was invited to go to his church when I got ill with my breast issue, also it's 5 months tomorrow. I go to the doctor this week. I actually told my doctor I didn't want to fight anymore. I thought I was not even going to be here. So I made it to my 5-month mark. We're going to go check out, see if it's gotten bigger, and we're going to move forward. I'm going to live my best life. I'm traveling again and just having fun and supporting people that want to have fun. I put God first. I'm going to continue to post up my videos about people who may not have the opportunity to read while they're at work, and you have a quick break and you want to pop on and 3 to 4 minutes and see me read my daily devotion, or to go to something else, but inspiration. But be encouraged. I'm a survivor. I survived being a mom at 14. I got married at 18. I didn't divorce till I was 26. My kids competed on collegiate level. They traveled to Europe, China, Arizona, all over the place, getting their life. And I'm putting this out for them so they could be proud of their mama, and maybe not agree with everything I do, but just know I love them, and I want them to just continue to move forward. And even the women that are in their lives and we haven't talked in a long time, happy Mother's Day to you and to your mother. And I just love my grandchildren, and I thank God for all the people that have done nothing but even my doctors, all of my doctors. I mean, the doctors that have helped me change my life. I used to be 340 pounds, y'all, and now I'm down. I tell people my weight, I'm 220, because last year, in 2017, when I was in an auto accident, meeting up with my husband, we were having a meeting, and someone ran through a stop sign. And I lost my apartment that I worked for 9 months saving my money to move out, but we got back together, and I put on 50 pounds, and so I was 254 pounds last year, and now I'm down to 220. I have 30 pounds to go, and I want to stand up and inspire somebody, so you can see. And here's the treadmill I got as a gift for my birthday in February when I turned 51. So you can't really see, but thank you guys for listening, and may God bless you, and may you have a blessed day. Please go check out wethebusiness.com. That's wethebusiness.com, and get your I Am Inspiration, get your motivational glasses, Who Raised You. And by the way, I love Who Raised You because when I was growing up, my aunt from LA, she gonna put you in check when you do something ignorant, especially get your dress dirty or just do something crazy. She gonna say, "Who raised you? You're digging for food and outside playing and you don't wash your hand. Who raised you?" That's the term. I was 60s, 70s baby, and that's where it comes. And to meet this young man who's changing his whole family dynamic, building his empire with Who Raised You. Now he has hat, glasses. You might have not liked some of the stuff he had on his shirts now, but there's things that you can buy to help motivate some young person. That's the job creation, and also giving back to the homeless. I went with him when he gave back. I watched him over the last 3 years build what he has now, and so and even helping me. I'm supporting his business, and who knows what the outcome will be of that. I'm now doing my videos. So God bless. Don't do nothing I won't do. Deuces, my gooses.